Malcolm Nance warns minorities will face roundup under Trump, be put in camps after America voted for dictatorship.
We are blessed with lolcows.
No one's ever accused this guy of being of sound mind. He tweets, "Let's get something straight. The American people voted to absolutely make sure loads of people would die at Trump's hands. Their daughters, their wives, children, and their fellow citizens would die from school shootings, pregnancy, and easily cured diseases. It's free hunting season for blacks with immunity for white cops. Muslims and Latinos will definitely die in mass deportation run-ins and camps. Gaza will be bulldozed if not ethnically cleansed. Iranians who want democracy will die. Ukrainians are dying in droves already." This man is unwell.
It's it's got to be crack in that pipe. What is this guy?
The issue is, I'll mention Alan Lichtman, the guy with the keys to the White House prediction who said Kamala was going to win. I feel really bad for him. He had this great track record. And then he decided at some point that CNN was trustworthy. Ugh. And this is the same thing with people like Malcolm Nance. They live in this brainwashed cult world where they watch MSNBC all day, and MSNBC is just spewing fake news for money, and these people believe it. And this is where they end up thinking that we're in, it's 1933 again.
It's open season in cop. He says it's like open hunting season for black men, and cops going to shoot them. I mean, the last year I looked at was 2019, but it was like there were about 10 unarmed black men killed by police officers the entire year.
That's a great point. Like the left tends to believe the most exaggerated and the most ridiculous things when right before and right around the time that George Floyd died, there were, if you asked your typical liberal, they would say that there's probably hundreds to thousands of black men killed by police every year. And things like, Donald Trump is going to deport everyone that's brown. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not, you're all going to go. That's what they're talking about on X and TikTok. And they're going to outlaw abortion. It is all histrionic. It is all the most extreme, ridiculous caricature. And I understand that generally the left has less of an understanding of the right than the right does of the left. The right will listen to the arguments made by the left and listen to the things that they want. And the right and the left just tends to look at the right as a caricature of what the most evil is. But you'd think at some point they would begin to attempt to understand. And I don't think they will.
But let's just, to be clear, this guy doesn't believe any of that nonsense. I mean, he doesn't actually believe that. There might be the most, if you go on TikTok and you see these girls screaming in the car and most of that is also fake, by the way. But if you're going to find anyone who actually believes that stuff, it's going to be the TikTok women screaming in cars. This guy doesn't believe it. And you know he doesn't believe it because if you actually believe that, then you would respond a certain way. And one thing you would do is you would leave the country. I mean, if you actually believed that a fascist dictator is going to run the country now, it's open season on you. Like anyone can shoot because he's a black guy. Anyone can shoot you. People are getting rounded up and put in camps, and they're not going to cure diseases anymore. I don't know where that comes from. If you really believe that, then you would just leave. It would be an easy decision to leave the country, flee for your life. But he's not going to do that, and because he's not sitting around in fear. He's quite comfortable, and this is just rhetoric on his part.
Well, I do think there are going to be some people who leave.
Yeah.
Celebrities who said that.
God willing.
I think this time it may be true. And you know why? There are 2 lists that we're hoping will be released by the Trump administration.
All right. Yeah.
Yep. So I think some people might want to get out before Donald Trump gets into office. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just want to say this. I think because Donald Trump threatened to assassinate Liz Cheney, which is a very real thing that he actually said, and it's a true story and not fake news. I think Joe Biden has a responsibility to help the Cheneys leave the country right now for their own safety. And I think he also has to help every journalist who repeated that story leave the country because Trump is going to be vindictive.
I totally agree. That's very kind of you also to
thank you.
Be thinking about their well-being.
I mean, look, when you have a presidential candidate making those kinds of unbelievable threats, something has to be done to protect those people.
Yeah.
This line about Muslims and Latinos is especially crazy. I don't know. Muslims and Latinos that were they were soon about to die in mass deportation and roundup camps. Why did he throw Muslims in there? I don't know. Are they here illegally as well?
Why did Trump throw Muslims in there is the question, Elaad.
Oh, but the Muslims voted for Trump.
It's true. And so did the Latinos.
Right. And he's like, well, they're voting for, because Trump's a racist or whatever. And it's just like, I kind of think You know, what I love about this is that they're basically screaming in the face of Latinos, you're stupid.
Yeah.
You have no agency, you're dumb. But you know what's funny is that Yale study that found white liberals talk down to black people. They pretend to be less competent than they are when they speak to minorities. And this is exactly it. They think the poor minority is too stupid to figure out what they need for their families.
Yep. There is a little incoherence in his foreign policy, his geopolitical policies here. He's complaining about the Russians with the Ukrainians dying. He's complaining about the Ayatollah in Iranian with the Iranians. But then he's also saying the Israelis will be emboldened to be genociding Gazans.
Yeah, right.
So it's not coherent here. It's because the Iranians are actually attacking the Israelis and the Iranians are saying they're trying to prevent, alleged genocide in Gaza. And all of this is a mishmash. And Malcolm Nance is happy to see Donald Trump reelected because it's good for him personally, and it's going to line his pockets. Because now, whenever he says stuff like this, it will go mega viral. Attention to MSNBC will be through the roof. MSNBC did their best under their first Trump administration, and Malcolm Nance is now about to be a part of MSNBC's. That's a lineup for the second term.
MSNBC is going to turn into some like liberal YouTube channel with one guy left on it, and they're going to get 40,000 views per video.
It's more left than the Young Turks is nowadays, especially with Anna and Cenk behaving the way that they have lately.
Yeah, and they have, but I think that's a good point and something to keep in mind that a lot of these people in the corporate media, Trump is basically a lifeline for them. He's going to keep them somewhat relevant for the next 4 years. I mean, they're not relevant and they have no influence, but at least it gives them kind of a niche for 4 years where they could just, attack the Trump administration. And so really, I think many of them are quite, I think you're right. I think a lot of them are actually happy that he was elected.
Also, this line here that women will die from getting pregnant. I mean, all of these abortion advocates in the abortion lobby know that that's not true, that women are not going to be prosecuted and never are for having miscarriages. But they're comfortable saying that, even though it means that some women who actually are experiencing complications from a miscarriage will be less likely to go to a hospital and therefore more likely to die because they believe that they'll go to jail for having a miscarriage, because it will help them to try to push back against abortion laws, which cut into the profits of slaughtering unborn babies.
What I love about this line as well is that when you say something like, we should not allow abortions at 9 months, they say, oh, that's an edge case. These things never happen. Why are you even arguing it? And then they go, here's one woman who died recently from a complication. And it's like, do they not follow the same logic?
Well, and it's not even true, though.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like, they will argue an edge case and say, this is why we must have universal access. And then when you say, well, I disagree because it goes too far, they say, oh, those are edge cases. It doesn't matter.
They only talk, when it comes to abortion, all they talk about is edge cases. The entire conversation is, right, rape, incest, life of the mother. That's all they want to talk about with abortion. That's always been the case. Those are, you're talking about less than 1% of all cases fall into that category. And really, life of the mother cases are, that actually doesn't happen. You never need an abortion to save a woman's life. So, but that's all they ever do. They never want to talk about the 99%. But I think this is another one of the great and really encouraging takeaways of Trump's victory is that, we were told, even by conservatives, we've been told for 2 years now that Roe being overturned is going to be a political disaster for Republicans, and we're going to have this. It's going to be an uprising of pro-abortion feminists, and they're going to exact their revenge. And it just didn't happen. It did not materialize.
I got it for you guys. I know exactly how you can get abortion banned. 100%. It's really easy. First, you're going to need a Democrat administration in power. Then you need to win a midterm with Republicans. The Republicans need to tank the economy. Then once everyone's just super angry about the economy, we can squeeze through any laws that you want. You can ban anything because people just, it's the economy, stupid. So my point here is, while Democrats were screaming at the top of their lungs that abortion was the principal issue, and they were trying to make it an issue, the only thing anybody cared about was that butter was $7. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not the biggest issue for Americans. I think it ranked at number 5. And I'm not saying it's not important to you guys. I'm just
Well, no,
saying,
but-
you want to win an election, you go on economics.
And you're right, it did rank highly. But remember, when wanting to protect democracy or thinking democracy was under threat ranked highly, people assumed that meant that liberals were concerned that Trump was going to destroy democracy.
Right.
But then most of the people who answered that they were concerned about the future of democracy actually ended up voting for Trump. That's what we learned from the exit poll.
Yep.
So similarly, people saying abortion was a very important issue to them doesn't necessarily mean that they were coming from the pro-abortion angle.
So Trump's Supreme Court was largely obviously responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade, but Trump has since then said, I think he was not confused, but said that he was a little bit reluctant with the overturning, and now he said that he wouldn't move forward with any sort of national abortion ban. Do you have any thoughts moving forward on who's going to be the guy to get you to the next level with banning abortion? Like Trump helped overturn Roe v. Wade. Do you think he's the guy to do the next step, or do you see him sort of running away from it?
What do you mean by next step?
I mean, I'm assuming you want to see a national abortion ban.
Yeah, I would.
So yeah,
If it were up to me, it would be federally banned from conception, period.
yeah.
And I would love to see that. I don't think Trump's not going to do that.
Define abortion.
The intentional violent termination of a pregnancy.
I think, and the reason why I asked you to do this is because I think
You don't need violent, actually. Intentional termination of a pregnancy.
Intentional killing.
there was that Jubilee video, I think was with Ben Shapiro, and the woman said, no, you're wrong, abortion is not that. That's not what it is. And then I think it was Ben who said this. This liberal woman viewed abortion as just like a miscarriage or something.
Or like they'll say early deliveries. It's like, shut up. That's not
No,
what
she was
we're
saying
talking
like
about. No
giving
one means
birth is an
that.
abortion or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's just silly.
Well, that was the weird thing when I think we had someone on this show and she argued that birth was abortion. And I was like, what? Because it ends the pregnancy.
Right.
And I was like, no, abortion. Because I actually had this argument with Seamus like 2 years ago, and I was wrong because I said, no, abortions could be in the instance of, say, like a miscarriage. And Seamus told me I was wrong. And then I ended up not believing him and being wrong. And then we looked up the definition by law and Planned Parenthood. And I was like, oh, Seamus was right the whole time. Abortion, Planned Parenthood defines it as the intentional termination of a pregnancy that ends the life of the baby.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, if you are just ending the pregnancy itself, there's yes, I guess you
don't
could
need to kill the baby.
Right. You could refer to delivering a baby as ending the pregnancy, but like no one talks that way. But that's also an important point. This is the point about late term abortions is that, and this is every case when you hear about, well, there needed to be an abortion to save the woman's life. And this is almost always later term.
Do you see that commercial they made?
Which
With the guy?
Where,
With the guy?
okay, sorry to interrupt her. But
yeah.
the woman's on the ground and she's bleeding, and the guy's like, "Doctor, what do I do?" And he goes, "She needs an abortion." And then the Republican congressman grabs the phone and is like, "No."
Yeah.
And I was just like, if your wife falls on the ground covered in blood and you don't call 911, you call your physician, and on top of that, your physician doesn't advise you to call 911, you are crazy people.
Yeah, you need to probably need to get a new doctor. But but that's the thing with a late term abortion, when there can be cases where the pregnancy needs to end in order to preserve the woman's life, and so the baby needs to be delivered, but killing the baby, aborting the baby, is an extra step that obviously is not necessary to preserve the woman's life. You could just deliver the baby and then try to save the baby's life. So every time they're saying that, well, you need to get the abortion to preserve the woman's life, what they're saying is that we need to deliver the baby and also kill the baby in the process, which is obviously a totally medically unnecessary.
And it's even worse.
But that's post viability.
Because,
So
yeah.
in a circumstance where the baby's not going to survive on its own, maybe it's too soon in the pregnancy, but the health of the mother is jeopardized. I've never heard a conservative argue that there should not be attempts to save the mother's life.
No. Well, also, it's even worse than that. You're absolutely right that that's how they frame this when they claim that there are medically necessary abortions, which there aren't. But on top of that, when they're saying medically necessary abortions, they're also saying for reasons of mental health. This woman will be depressed if she doesn't get an abortion. It's like, she'll be more depressed if she does.
I guess, Matt, one of the things I was trying to get at, it seems as though over the past couple of decades, Republicans have become less and less pro-life, and Donald Trump is clearly the most pro-choice Republican we've ever had. What do you think about the direction of the Republican Party in relation to this issue?
Yeah, I think if it were totally up to me, as I said, I'd have a federal abortion ban. That's not what's happening. Trump's not going to do that. I don't think any Republican president in the foreseeable future is going to do that, is going to campaign on that. And so this does move into the states, and that's just, I believe in, like, acknowledging reality for what it is and then trying to operate within reality rather than demanding that reality be something that it's not. And so that's the reality that we're operating in right now as a pro-life movement. We're operating in a reality where there's no federal ban. There's probably not going to be one anytime in the near future. And so it becomes a state-by-state battle. And so that's the future. That's where we need to fight it is in the states. And
I mean, moreover, there seems to be a pro-choice consensus among both parties. I feel like Republicans are now split and Democrats are probably around 80-20. So,
depends on what you mean by pro-choice.
Yeah, and also
14 weeks, give or take a couple of weeks.
I don't know if I go so far as to say consensus among. I mean, there are plenty of, very pro-life Republicans, even in elected office, and I think what you're finding in some cases is pro-lifers and Republicans adopting this kind of incremental approach to protecting babies, which I agree with. All incrementalism means is that I am going to select the best possible option available to me right now. And so if the best thing I can do right now, if the best thing I can achieve right now is protecting babies past X point, then I'll take that. I'll take that now. And then I'm going to immediately start working for the next thing. I mean, I say the same thing about when we're the fight to protect children from gender, quote unquote gender transition.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's incremental. So I want to protect children from this this butchery. I also happen to think personally that it shouldn't be legal for doctors to do that to anybody. I don't care how old you are.
I think the incrementalism, though, is we're seeing it go in the opposite direction. I mean, Bush was pro-life, Mitt Romney was extremely pro-life, and I think Trump is almost...
And Trump is too, and Trump got Roe overturned.
I don't think Trump is pro-life.
Well, he says he is, but I do think this is kind of an absurd argument that those presidents you mentioned did not get Roe overturned. And so it's fascinating to me that there are pro-lifers who are like, I would not vote for Donald Trump. I'm like, he's given you more than any Republican president's ever given you on the issue.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with your premise. I do think Trump is more pro-life than, say, Bush was. He appointed the pro-life justices. He is the only...
He had more of an opportunity, though, because Bush did what? Clarence Thomas, who was extremely pro-life, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm talking about W. Bush. W. Bush.
Well, let's...
and Roberts, right? Didn't W do Roberts? Who was really lame.
And here's the other thing. This is not a small thing. This is significant. Trump is the only president who spoke at the March for Life.
Yeah.
And I've been to the March for Life for 8 years. The March for Life was happening in D.C. under Bush's tenure. Never showed up one time. And that really tells you something. So I think that at a minimum, Trump is as pro-life as past Republican presidents. I think you can make an argument that he's more. He's not as pro-life as I am, but I don't think that he's a step back on that issue.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.